I'll be talking about dementia care strategies in the time of COVID-19. Really, I thank you to the Mirowitz Center for asking Memory Care to present and for this opportunity I get to share the next hour with you all. Briefly, I just wanted to talk about who Memory Care Home Solutions is. We're a nonprofit organization. We were founded in 2002. Our executive director, her name is Lisa Barron. And she kind of started and helped found this organization after her family experienced caregiving for her mother-in-law. And it was a pretty challenging situation. And her family kind of said, if we're having challenges and we're educated and have resources and work together and we're still having challenges, there must be many people having challenges, and how can we support them? So our mission is to to extend and improve quality time at home for families caring for loved ones with Alzheimer's disease or related dementia. We're an interdisciplinary team. So myself, I'm a social worker. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. And then I also work with occupational therapist. We provide a customized caregiver education and training program. So we are not an in-home care company. My role and the occupational therapist role is to really work with the primary caregiver and family members who are caring for someone with memory loss. And like I said, we're an education and training program. So we really are an individualized service for your specific needs. And I think that that's what's really helped prepare me for this presentation today, is that although COVID has changed the landscape of healthcare and the landscape of what our day-to-day life looks like, there's still challenges of dementia that are now exacerbated by some of the limitations and the restrictions of COVID. So that's what we're really going to talk about today. But so I've seen it firsthand, not only with my own grandmother, who I'm the primary caregiver for, along with my mother, but also in my professional life. We also do a lot of educational programs just like this. And then we have a geriatric care counseling program that myself and my coworker, Amy, we really work with caregivers on short-term solutions-focused counseling as it relates to being a caregiver. Briefly, our program, everyone is in our program for at least a year, more if wanted. We have an initial family consultation where you meet with myself or one of the other social workers. You're offered occupational therapy visits. We follow up formally with you all at 3 and 6 months, and again at 12 months. The OT visits are paid for by or reimbursed by Medicare Part B or most health insurance. So if you have questions, all of my contact information is on the last slide. You can feel free to reach out to me after today's presentation for more details. As a program as itself for memory care, the only two criteria for our program is a person who has suspected or confirmed cognitive impairment. A diagnosis is not required, and a family member. So whether it's you or one of your adult children, it could even be a neighbor or a faith community member, but someone who's willing to work with us. And then we serve St. Louis City County, St. Charles County, Jefferson County, the Illinois side, and then we can serve anyone nationwide virtually. We really pride ourselves on our excellence in service. We also feel in our values that guide our service are compassion, empowerment, accessibility, and collaboration. And so our service is client driven. We work in partnership with caregivers just like yourselves. We want to brainstorm strategies and work with you on ideas that are specific for you. We don't want to be prescriptive, and we don't want to tell you what works, but really work in partnership with you. Okay. So that was briefly about memory care home solutions. I didn't want to spend too much time on it, but if you have more questions about our organization as a whole, please feel free to email me or call me, and I can answer that. So many of you may be family caregivers, or caring for a friend who has Alzheimer's disease or related dementia, or have had experience in the past of being a caregiver. And so these 5 that I listed, this is not an exhaustive list of common challenges for persons with Alzheimer's disease or related dementias, but it's kind of some of the most common challenges that care partners face. So the first one is communication. And when a person with Alzheimer's disease or related dementia starts progressing into their disease more, their ability to interpret information and then their ability to express language and information becomes much harder. And so what we find is that as a care partner, it's really learning a completely different language and learning how do we interact or engage with the person we're caring for or supporting that's more effective. And so that we find is one of the most common challenges care partners face is how to communicate more effectively. We also find that respite or breaks becomes very hard. The nature of this disease is that it's progressive. And as a person progresses in this disease, their care needs increase. And so we find that especially the primary caregiver tends to need to be more present with them for longer periods of time. And this can be hard. It's, being a caregiver is not a one-person job. And so getting breaks is really important, but we know the reality is that most care partners do not get enough breaks, which means that compassion fatigue or burnout is very real. One of the third most common challenges that care partners face when supporting someone with Alzheimer's disease or related dementia is driving. And when is the right time for someone to stop driving? We know that many times a person is able to hit the gas pedal or hit the brake or turn on the blinker or stop at a stop sign, turn the wheel, doing the physical mechanisms of driving. But what becomes hard is really understanding is how are they processing? What is the reaction time or judgment? And so really helping navigate families through whether driving's still appropriate, getting a driving evaluation test, but that's another very common challenge care partners face. The fourth is socialization and activity, and we're going to really, really, really talk about this today because I think that's been one of the most disruptive items that has happened due to COVID-19. But we already know that just in itself, a person with Alzheimer's disease and related dementias typically can become more socially isolated, withdraw from friends, withdraw from favorite activities from the past. And it then really falls a lot on you all as the care partners to take on almost the activities coordinator role as well, which becomes very, very exhausting. So we're going to talk about some ideas to help with that. And then lastly, and I think probably 9.8 out of every 10 caregivers, so almost 10 out of 10 caregivers that I work with, find that personal care becomes one of their biggest challenges. And, as the disease progresses and a person's ability to process through tasks or to initiate a task becomes much harder. And so things like brushing our teeth, washing our face, changing our clothes consistently or appropriately, getting in a shower or bath and actually cleaning ourselves appropriately becomes much harder. But for the person with the Alzheimer's disease or related dementia, it's not typically a task that we've had to have assistance with in the past. And so learning as the care partner, learning how to communicate or complete a task more effectively without upsetting or trying to minimize the level of upsetness can be difficult. So I wanted to go through some of the most common challenges of Alzheimer's disease and related dementia first, because what we have seen and what I have seen throughout the past 7 to 8 months, especially as COVID-19 remains very relevant, is that some of these common challenges that have been experiencing are exacerbated, just like the socialization and activity, I think, and respite. But we've also seen some new challenges arise. And so if you find yourself as a care partner currently, you know that there have been other challenges that have arisen. And so that's what we're going to spend the second half of this presentation really talking about. So, like I said, Memory Care Home Solutions, we've been delivering services to families since 2002. I've been with the organization since 2012. And what I have seen over the past 7 or 8 months has really, really rocked many, if not all, of the families I served. COVID, not only on a national and global level, has been our pandemic and our reality, but really for care partners and persons with Alzheimer's disease or related dementia, it has just completely changed the landscape of what their life looks like day to day. We know that a person who has Alzheimer's disease or a related dementia benefits from a consistent, structured routine. And that although they might not be able to articulate that, we see that behaviors tend to be less, a person sleeps a bit better, maybe the caregiver is getting more breaks whenever we're having this consistent routine. And I think that early on into the pandemic, one of the biggest things that we were getting calls at Memory Care Home Solutions about where family members were just completely thrown off guard by this change of routine. And a person might not being able to go to their adult day center or volunteer, or having friends stop by or family members take their loved one out for lunch, or going to the exercise center. This routine has changed. And so many family members found themselves at a loss of how to fill that time, at a loss of how to manage behaviors, because the person that they're caring for, their brain is still really wanting to be in that routine and doesn't know how to adjust to change easily, but it just couldn't happen. So we've definitely seen that change of routine has been one of the most prevalent challenges COVID-19 has brought. The second is social isolation. So not only does a person with Alzheimer's disease or related dementia benefit from a consistent, structured routine, but they benefit most from activity and socialization, and really using the preserved abilities that they do still have, and being able to communicate with others and interact with others. And so when everything shut down, and maybe a person wasn't going to an adult day center, but they'd go to Deerberg's or schnooks every other day with their care partner to talk to the people in the checkout lane. That's not happening as much. Or they're not being able to just go and get a coffee or stop at a breakfast place that they usually do. And so when we have found that being cut off from the outside world and really having to stay inside for our own health um, has really been a challenge COVID-19 has presented. Social distancing, which is something that is very important to manage and decrease the spread of this pandemic, has really caused problems within primary caregivers and even families, not only for persons who remain home and in the community, but especially for persons who might be in senior living communities or assisted livings or nursing home memory care communities. Families aren't able to visit. Families aren't able to check in on their loved ones or bring them meals. And so we know that this has had some grave implications on the health and well-being of persons with Alzheimer's disease and related dementia. The availability of community resources has really, we've seen a hit, and not necessarily that the funds aren't available, but the actual persons in the organizations aren't available. When things shut down and revenue couldn't come in, we've seen that many community resources have had to furlough or suspend services. And so it's become a lot harder to actually find available services with the pre-existing limited services that were already offered. And finally, I'm sure you all have seen this as well, a challenge has been really doctor's appointments or following up with your own healthcare as the care partner or the person that you're caring for. And we know, especially at a time when dehydration, urinary tract infections, thyroid levels, unmanaged diabetes, if we're not taking prescription heart medication appropriately, we're not sleeping as well, some of these actual medical causes or medical contributing factors to increase in symptoms or increasing the speed of the progression. If you're not, family members hadn't been able to stay on top of some of these things, and we've seen that that's become a challenge. Many offices now are offering virtual or telehealth services. So if your doctor's office has not reached out to you yet about that, I encourage you all to reach out to them. It's not always on a virtual. Sometimes it can be just by phone. So I hope you all have at least heard from your primary care doctor in their office since within the past month or two. But if not, I really encourage you to call them and say, what is available to us, especially if we still are hesitant to go into the office. So these are some of the challenges that the caregivers, the care partners, the persons with dementias that I have and my coworkers have really seen. Now we're going to go into kind of what are some strategies and ways to help combat some of this. We're really going to look at activity, creating a sense of meaning and purpose, and ways to keep a person busy in the home, because I think that that's really what care partners find is very hard, is how do we keep someone busy for most of the day. Okay, so one of the first things I want to talk about for you all as care partners is virtual supports and ideas. The Alzheimer's Association of Greater St. Louis, they do a wonderful job and have been doing a wonderful job converting a lot of their support groups into virtual support groups. So if you are not connected with the Alzheimer's Association of Greater St. Louis, I strongly encourage to reach out to them or go onto their website, because many of their groups have converted to Zoom, and they update that monthly. So they're doing a much better job at updating what are the virtual meetup events that they have, as well as the support groups that are available. There's also a really great resource and community on the Illinois side, that if you live in Illinois, or even because it's virtual, you're still able to attend. It's called St. John's Community Care. So St. John's Community Care is an organization on the other side of the river who they not only offer adult day center, but they have a lot of caregiver stress buster events. They have a lot of caregiver educational events. They have virtual support groups. And they have done an incredible job at really modifying and adapting their services to be virtual, so that caregivers still feel that they can be supported. So again, that is St. John's Community Care. Just because you live in Illinois, in Missouri, does not mean you can't attend it. And with it being virtual services now, you don't even have to drive over to Collinsville. You can just do it from the comfort of your living room. One thing that we have found as far as ways to help bring family members into the home a little bit easier is Amazon Echo. So the Amazon Echo Show, that is a device that you can actually do drop-in calls. So let's say you maybe had to go run an errand, yet the person you're caring for is at the house, and you want to make sure that maybe your daughter or son can talk to them. This Amazon Echo Show has the opportunity that, like, your daughter or son or family member can just call in, and the person doesn't have to accept the call. They can just start talking. So maybe the call goes in and they say, "Hey mom," or "Hey Pearl, come over here," and they see it and can just start talking. So that's another way to help with kind of getting family members into the home if physically being there is not possible. And lastly, we really want to help engage and bring about all generations of family. So if we can't be there in person, sometimes what families have been finding recently is having grandkids or even great grandkids, even adult children, writing letters, sending cards, sending pictures, and mailing them to you all and to the person you're caring for, because getting something in the mail is really exciting, and it's a way to still keep that connection without physically being able to see them. Okay, so now I'm going to get more into kind of just strategies to what are some ideas and strategies that we can actually do in the home to stay busy. So again, keep in mind, one of the most important pieces when you're trying to help manage difficult behaviors or help keep someone with Alzheimer's disease or related dementia busy is the creation of a routine. And really what we strive for is waking up about the same time every day, within a half an hour to an hour, going to bed at about the same time every day, within a half an hour to an hour, and taking medication and eating meals about the same time. So then we look at, okay, how do we fill the time between breakfast and lunch? How do we fill time between lunch and dinner? And how do we fill time from after dinner before bed? So there's kind of three big sections we look at. I don't know if you want to look at it as a silver lining, but one way that we can look at short-term memory loss is that A person's ability to retain that they already completed a certain task or engaged in a certain task may not be there for long. And so some of these ideas you can do multiple times throughout the day. And whenever we're kind of communicating with someone to do these tasks, it's not to just do the task, but it's really to present the idea that they're helping you. That this is something you need done, or this is something that a grandkid needs done. And, with them having school from home now, your daughter is just having a harder time getting to this thing. And so she would really find it helpful if you could help her sort these cards, or cut out these hearts, or match their socks. It doesn't have to be a truthful reason, but we typically find that when we're trying to get someone to engage in an activity, if it's presented as a way to help, or that will give meaning and purpose, it tends to go over better and a person engages in it. So ideas that are more repetitive, so a task that's more repetitive, that doesn't have too many steps, and that kind of we can set up ahead of time, becomes helpful. So any kind of sorting task, like sorting cards by colors or suits, sorting coins, sorting silverware, any sort of folding task like matching up socks. I had a family tell me the other day that they went to the dollar store and they bought, I think it was just 2 packs of socks, that each pair was a different color. And so twice a day, they just say, "Mom, these socks came out of the dryer. It would be great if you could help me sort them." And then Mom puts the colors together. The idea to remember when we're looking at an engaging activity is that the end result is not what we're looking for. So even if a purple and a blue sock are matched up, that's okay. Even if the cards aren't sorted exactly by suit, or the silverware is not completely separated, how it, knives are with knives, forks are with forks, spoons are with spoons, that's okay. It's the engagement that is what we're looking for. And the expectation that engagement might only be 10 or 15 minutes. It could only be 5 or 10 minutes. Because as this disease progresses, a person's ability to concentrate on a task becomes harder. And lastly, what I want to say about activity and creating meaning and purpose is that initiation becomes harder for persons. And so sometimes as the care partner, we can't expect that a person's going to be able to match the socks or sort the utensils or silverware if it's not in their line of sight, or if they're not verbally prompted to do it. And so sometimes as the care partner, it's a very helpful strategy to set things in their line of sight, or to get them started, and then they can continue and complete the task. But to expect that the person's going to be able to do it on their own may not be realistic. The next thing I want to talk about is music. Music is a wonderful way to engage someone. Music and faith are 2 components of our brain, are 2 ways that our brain is stimulated and formed, and the pathways are wired that stays in our brain the longest. So even when a person is in very late or end stages of this disease, music is still a wonderful way to engage. And when we look at music, we can use music as a way to calm, We can use music as a way to get some exercise and do some dancing in the living room. We can't get out. We can also use music as a way to engage in a way that, can we find a few songs or a playlist that the person really enjoys, that they may be able to walk around the house or sit and listen to music where their brain is still being actively stimulated, but their body maybe is getting some breaks. So music can be used in many different ways. At Memory Care Home Solutions, we were trained to be a music and memory organization. So I don't know if you all have seen the documentary Alive Inside before, but we actually can help provide you with individualized music playlists. We do a music inventory with the care partner, as well as other family members, if you want to really try and get a playlist that works best for you and the person you're caring for. So that's what this picture is. We were delivering one of those individualized playlists. So if that's something that seems like it could be of value to you, definitely reach out to me after today's presentation. So this is something that as COVID really became more prominent and things shut down, we saw a boom in virtual tours or virtual experiences that you can do through YouTube or certain websites. And this is where the PDF handout is coming in, that will come into play, that I've asked Judith to email to you all. So many websites now, like I said, or YouTube, are doing virtual experiences where you can go and explore the Great Wall of China. You can go and visit SeaWorld. You can see what the Galapagos Islands look like, or participate in religious ceremonies or events. And so, like I said, the PDF handout that we're going to send to you has all of these links on them. So when you get it via email, you're just going to have to hit Control and then click on the link, and it'll take you to that website. And you can really kind of spend time exploring, let's say, like the Great Wall of China. And when we're engaging in conversation, it can be about how, wow, do we think we could walk that long, or how green the trees are, or how long do you think it took to build? And so many times, like I said, communication becomes hard for someone with Alzheimer's disease or related dementia. But what we typically find is that if you're talking about something that is in the moment, that they can see, that we can describe, communication and language becomes easier in that moment. So there are some ideas about touring the world. So feel free and please look at that PDF handout that we're going to be sending to you. What we're also finding is that since COVID-19, and a lot of these zoos and aquariums and tourist attractions have closed down, they've done wonderful jobs at still being able to virtually experience. So also on that PDF, you're going to have links to the Atlanta Zoo, that you can do a virtual visit to the zoo. In the Monterey Bay Aquarium, they have a live webcam. So one thing that the families that we've been working with have really found enjoyable is the live webcams for different animals. So again, on YouTube, and that we'll be providing links to you all. You can go check out like the eagles, or you can go check out the aquarium and see live looks as if you were there and what is going on. Music and arts, that's been one thing that Again, it's a really great way to stimulate and to engage. It typically brings about past hobbies and enjoyable activities, but they've been limited because of COVID-19. So the National Women's History Museum, they do they have a presentation of oral history stories. So if that's something that sounds of interest, we have that link on there. The Metropolitan Opera, every evening at 8:30 p.m., they stream they stream a production, and then that's on their website for 24 hours. So if that had been an enjoyable activity. The symphony is also putting on and streaming symphony orchestra and symphony programs. So again, that link is on there. And then there's a few art museums and art collectors that have transformed their galleries into virtual experiences. So again, all of those links to some of these ways to engage are on that PDF handout. Exercise is huge, and it's becoming, it already is hard, but especially if maybe the senior center or the community center that you've been attending has closed down, exercise can become harder. So I know that Silver Sneakers, they have some online exercise classes. The St. Louis Area Agency on Aging, they're doing an online Tai Chi class. Oasis, they're generally, prior to COVID, they were a nonprofit that really focused on lifelong learning, community engagement, and socialization. And so their fall 2020 programs have all been converted to virtual. It's called Virtual Lifelong Adventures in a Time of Change. So the link on this PowerPoint is to their virtual catalog that shows you what else is offered virtually. And they have things that are not only exercise classes, but might be a baking class, it might be a history lesson. So it's one of those things that could give you more ideas on how to stay engaged. So again, Jude, I've asked Judith to not only share with you the PDF file, but also this presentation so you guys can have this link as well. And finally, the final resource I wanted to talk about is Memory Care Home Solutions. And again, I briefly explained what our program is. I'm going to wrap up with just kind of, one of, I think, the most beneficial aspects of our program that I have heard over the past 7 years is the individualized support. And especially in a time of COVID where we are not dealing with the normal challenges of life, there's added challenges. Really looking at, okay, what does your specific environment look like, your specific challenges, the specific person you're caring for. So if that is something that you all are looking for, not only ideas due to COVID-19, but maybe some of those challenges that were existing prior to COVID-19, please feel free to reach out to us. So here is our contact information. Here is our website, and then my email address and our office phone number.
Are we open for questions, Jan?
Yes.
So if anyone has a question, you can unmute yourself. You can type it in chat. Anything come to mind? We have a quiet audience.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Well, if no one has any questions, like I said, Judith, if you could, I hope you got my email this morning. If you could send all of the attendees or even people who RSVP'd the email with the PDF. It's called MCHS Engaging at Home, as well as this PowerPoint presentation. You feel free to look it over. Feel free to email me and my contact information, Judith, if you could send it out. I'd be more than willing to talk with you, not only about our services, but really how that we can help with maybe a specific challenge you might have in the moment.
And,
There's a question here.
and also I wanted to let everyone know that today's program was recorded and will be available on the Merowitz Center website in case you would like to review it again.
Alicia, did you have a
Yes.
question?
Ron Miller has a question. He's right here.
Okay.
The question relates to when an older person, one of your members of your family, begins to have signs of dementia.
Mm-hmm.
And you say, for example, you get an organization like you to begin to help.
Mm-hmm.
One of the issues is how much do you really share with the person about what's going on with their disease? My late dad and his girlfriend, I remember seeing that play out. I believe what my dad was told by the care company that he used was don't tell her exactly, say something like, well, you're forgetting something.
Mm-hmm.
So what is your perceived set of practices for that kind of issue?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And I think every family I've worked with find themselves kind of in that warring thought. My caveat is that every situation is going to be different because every person with Alzheimer's disease or dementia is different. And their reality in the moment changes. So I'm sure what you found, I think you said with your father, is that there are days and a lot of days that he's more lucid and that his orientation and his awareness and insight into what's going on is better. And so those days you may be able to say, Dad, it's just your brain isn't working as well anymore, and it's just having a harder time doing things. And then there's times where we find with persons that the dementia or the disease is really more prevalent. They're more disoriented, they're more confused, they're not thinking as straight. And that maybe is when I would suggest we don't have to orient to reality. We don't have to use the whole truth. So even saying things like, well, it's just a bad day. We didn't sleep well last night. Your brain might just be a little off or just not feeling the best. So to your point, Ron, I don't think there's any right or wrong answer. It's how do we respond to still show the dignity, to still be respectful, but also understanding that in the moment, a person might not be able to fully grasp the severity or have insight into their deficits.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if no one else has questions, we will be happy to email your presentation. It'll be available on our website. And thank you so much, Jan. This was very, very informative. I appreciate everything you shared today.
Thank you, Judith, and Stephen, thank you so much for this opportunity. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. We enjoyed it.
Good.